All right, I'm going to admit something here. I'm really excited to do this show. It is something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. We've been talking about it. And for the Thompson to Clark fans, the person who I'm about to introduce, this is the person who I always bring up when I say, I have a friend who's a really big Dodgers fan and he thinks this. This is who he is. Draven is in the house, and we're doing our first ever Giants versus Dodgers podcast. Now, this won't be a regular show. This will be sort of like a seasonal special thing. This may be the only one ever in existence, but I've been dying to do it. He finally found some time to where he could come join us and hang out a little bit. And it is perfect timing because in 2 days, Giants and Dodgers start their first 3-game series of the year. Draven, what is up?
I'm just right here looking forward to it. What a weird fucking lineup. What a weird. The schedule's so weird this year. And I don't like it. I think the reason why we have this weird three-way race going in the National League West is because of the schedule. You know, usually by this time, we would have played everybody in the West at least 2 times. And so the division would have been a little more spread out because obviously we're playing each other. Because of the way it's structured this year, where we're literally play the Padres for the first time. We just finished and we won the series, by the way, which is always good.
You did.
And then we got you guys coming up on Friday. We have this weird situation where we're right next to each other. I mean, literally, you know. And the D-backs, they cooled down a little bit, but they're also in the race still. The Rockies is a story for another day, and it's a story of baseball, actually. But well, you guys, I actually watched the entire 9th inning last night because it was just, as a baseball fan, I always like that kind of drama.
Yeah.
From last night's game, obviously today's game's still going on, and then today the Giants came back again, and like you just told me, but it's against the Rockies, so who cares, man? But
Rockies have 12 wins all season long.
But I will be to quote Shawn Michaels, what he told Bret Hart: "When it's my time to put you over, I will not put you over." Because that's where I am with the Giants. So I don't have a lot of nice things to say, but I will put over that 20. I'm a big. I shouldn't have said it like this, but I respect that 2010 run more than 2012 and 2014. I think that was a well-earned championship.
Band of Misfits is what they were called.
That's right. I remember that. I remember that whole year.
Okay, so the reason why I want to do this, obviously, we're both giant baseball fans. I do this show. You and I, whenever we get a chance to talk, we're usually talking pro wrestling, but we always do bring up baseball because I know that is one of your first loves. So the story of the season, coming off of your title last year, you guys won a World Series. Now, give me a little bit of stuff here, because last year the Giants did a promotion where they used the character of Mickey Mouse, and you got really mad, and you were you were telling me how angry you were at that, and I was like, I don't understand, like, why? And you said it's because they're making fun of the pandemic championship, calling it a Mickey Mouse title, and I didn't even realize that. So, like, how do you compare last year's title to the pandemic title? I'm guessing last year's title really, really meant a lot to you.
Well, to everybody, any Dodger fan in LA, I think 2020 was hard because the Lakers and the Dodgers both were in the same boat. And so, I mean, it doesn't matter how much we try to downplay it. Even later on, the players that were still in the Dodgers, the 2020 Dodgers that were still in the 2024 Dodgers team, they said it themselves, right? It was like you couldn't help but be proud and just, it's the monkey off our back again, because we got our monkey off our back, in 2020 from going all the way back to 88, and then all of a sudden it was like a half title, the Mickey Mouse title, the COVID title. We were getting more heat than the Astros, who actually got a real title from us in 2017 that they stole. And then so it felt good. It felt there was redemption here from finally getting a title. Dave Roberts, you know, getting jiggy with Ice Cube in the parade was so. See, 'cause out of everybody, right? Out of anybody, any fan, any player, Dave Roberts needed it the most
Mhm.
because he's had to carry this for years, you know. And so it was nice to see that. It was a great year for us, man. It was our year. Dave Roberts said it in the beginning of the season. This is our year. He had the team to do it, so it's safe to say that he wasn't necessarily going out on a limb, but we were not going to be stopped last year, and we weren't stopped. And it was an awesome fucking playoff run, you know, especially that Padres series.
So coming into this season, I think most people, and it's really hard to predict the World Series championship because the playoffs are hard. Like the Giants, I don't think the Giants were favored in any of their 3 championships to win the World Series before the season even started. Like they were not. You know, they even had to win the second or the third one as the wild card team. They didn't even win the division. So
Right. And that was the
coming in,
first year where that wild card was introduced, that the secondary one.
so now you guys come into the season, you pick up Blake Snell, you pick up Roki Sasaki, and all sort of things point to the idea of like, yeah, like we are a realistic repeat possibility. You guys are a really good team. The Giants are, winning a lot of baseball games, and yet we have not been able to catch you guys, including tonight as the Giants have come back. And I think it's 10-7 ahead of the Rockies in the 9th inning. And this was a game that was 6-3 Rockies in the 8th. And the Giants are just kind of winning by the skin of their teeth in some of these games. But do you feel like this is a team that is going to go back to back? Like, how confident are you after getting that monkey off of your back? What do you think about this year's team?
I'm very confident. I think we are. I know we're going to the playoffs. I could almost get, whether it's wild card or division, you know, we're in the playoffs. From there, as you know, because the Giants showed it to us many times, because I think Bruce Bochy's he's essentially 2 different kinds of coaches. You know, a regular season coach, which he isn't that good, and a playoff coach, which, you know, he's amazing. So everything starts over in the playoffs. We'll see, but I am confident we're getting back into the playoffs. One of the things that I really loved about Andrew Friedman is that he didn't hesitate. You know, what is the pattern that you see? You know, you guys saw it in 2011, 2013, and 2015. Like, it's not the same teams that come back, you know, especially because usually in championship years, a lot of the players' value goes up, obviously, because they're contributing to a championship year. And so a lot of them don't come back. And Andrew Friedman was like, I'm not going to let that happen. And he went out there and he invested more money into the team, you know, and I love to see that, because you cannot sit here and say that Dodger management doesn't want to win a championship, even after they already won a championship. You know, they could have been greedy and been like, you know what, let's leave the same team on the field that we had last year because it worked, sort of, and we'll see what happens. They didn't do that. They made upgrades. They saw a lot of their weaknesses, and they came and made some upgrades. You know, the bullpen struggled last year, even though they carried a lot of the load in the playoffs and in the World Series. And he went out there and he got Kirby Yates, you know. And so to me, that's a plus. He got Tanner Scott, who hasn't really worked out for us, but, you know, that was a big pickup, $75 million over 4 years to be the closer. We'll see what happens there. The point is that he really went out there and tried to get people to contribute to another championship by sheer osmosis, because our team is essentially an all-star team. Yeah, I'm very confident we're going to take it all the way. And the guys are producing. I mean, Freddie Freeman is a freak. I mean, the guy's almost batting 400, and here we are in the middle of June. You know, we'll talk a little bit later on about a lot of the guys that don't get any coverage, like you were saying, right. Like they don't get any, and it is a scary team. So I'm confident we're gonna be there at the end. Whether or not it's against the Yankees, we'll see. Might be against the Tigers, the way things are looking.
And of course, Otani just ho hum 23 jacks and hitting 290. Kind of like not even just from the perspective of last year, like where he was just ridiculous. It's like you kind of take it for granted, like we would do with Barry Bonds back in the day, where you're like, oh yeah, it's just expected now. He's going to come, he's going to produce, and you're just going to just not even be surprised anymore. But I don't know. Shohei's a pretty amazing baseball player. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask Draven some questions about his team. He'll ask me some question about the Giants, and we'll kind of get a little into the nitty gritty of both of our baseball teams. And then I have some historical stuff, the wins and losses versus each other over the last 24 years. This would have been 25th year.
I hope it's not. I hope you didn't put. I hope it's not self-serving, and you just kind of made it to where it's.
I just pulled it since the year 2000.
Hey, we both have 8 championships, so we both have 8 championships.
Even in some of the years that we were that we won the World Series, like that, I think the year that the Giants won as a wild card, you guys actually won that division, didn't you?
Yeah, we got eliminated by the Cardinals.
Okay, so yeah, so we'll do some historical stuff like that, and then kind of the creme de la creme. Brad and I did this on Monday, but we'll give out our top 5 most hated players. I will give my most hated Dodgers. Draven will give me his most hated Giants, and then we'll just kind of have a little bit of fun and before we get out of here. Okay, so my first question to you about your squad is what is okay, actually I want to go to the thing that you were saying about, the underrated part of your team. I want to ask you one question before that, because you guys just got done in a 3-gamer with the Padres. I read this story that before Monday's game, it was like the haves and the have-nots. Like the Dodgers, they're the first team ever to have 2 charter jets for their team. Like they spread it out. They're like, it's like living the great life. And the poor Padres, they couldn't even get their jet off of the strip because there was some malfunction or something. So they're playing hacky sack or something, waiting to get it. So there was like this interesting have and have nots. And I think that was kind of like the Padres' excuse for losing game 1. Then in game 2, you guys are like having positional players pitch in that game. And then you come back and you win the rubber match in game 3 today. I'm going to guess, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I'm going to guess that you still consider the Padres as the toughest team in the NL West, maybe the toughest team in the National League, just based off of the last 2 or 3 years of you guys having to go head up with these guys. Giants and Dodgers 2021, where we had to play that 5-game series, being the 2 best teams in the National League, which is kind of funky.
I was an emotional wreck during that series. and then, I mean, that series, because essentially you guys got a moral victory because you guys took it out of us. We were done after that series. Even though we won the series, we were done. So yeah, it was like a moral victory, but it did end in a check swing, which is always something that we're all going to remember. I liked it, but I know Giants fans.
My buddy Brad, those games were so intense. It was it was the second year we podcasted, but it was the first year that the Giants had made the playoffs, so we were doing these post-game shows.
I remember.
It was so intense. He got a migraine during one of them. I don't remember exactly which one it was. And we were doing like these 25, 30-minute post-gamers, and he's texting me during the show going like, I think I'm going to black out if we go any longer. Like that's how much his head was hurting. And so we kind of cut it off. But it was because of what you just said. Those games were so intense. They were all nail biters, but Giants haven't been good since then, right? They've been 500 teams since then, and the Padres have actually been this year. This year they've been pretty good.
Although again, the schedule could be have a lot to do with it. We'll see.
We'll talk about that schedule because I think you're right, and it's really a baseball change more than anything else. But do you consider the Padres the toughest team in the National League, right?
No, I consider the Mets the toughest team.
So you think
the Padres in the NL West?
Okay, so as of this recording, Dodgers are 41-28. The Mets are 44-24, so they have the best record in the National League. Cubs are 41 and 27.
And we just saw the Mets, so I got a good look at them. They're very dangerous. They're a dangerous ball club. Interestingly enough, Soto's he's not a big contributor to that danger, but they're a danger nonetheless. I'm gonna say something else about the Dodgers really quick because I don't know if you're gonna ask it or not, so I want to cover it here. Speaking of Soto, me and my friend who he's a hardcore Mets fan, one of my best friends, to the point where they come to town, we always go to the games live, and we're talking about Soto and Ohtani, right? And we're talking about essentially they're both very, very, very major league investments for the long term of the clubs, but the way Ohtani has shaped Los Angeles and Japan, the country of Japan, not Tokyo. What an amazing, like, he's already paid for tenfold. Like, this guy, all the money that he brings into the city from tourism, you know, they have shuttles that pick people up that are coming in from Japan to watch these games. I mean, he Dodger management was so smart in picking up this guy and paying him what they're paying him, because they were not just playing for a ball player. They were paying to ingrain themselves in a culture, and they've succeeded, because now every time the Dodgers go to Japan, they're going to sell out. It's a market that they've now lead in, right? And so I thought that was amazing. Whereas Juan Soto, I mean, he's just a ball player, you know, and he hasn't been that good actually. But so to me, Juan Soto was heavily overpaid. But now the market's way up there. They both kind of dictate the market now. You know, 600 mil over 12 years for minimum for these kind of players.
My buddy was in Japan probably a couple months ago, and he said, you go to 7-Eleven and it's like Shohei Ohtani 7-Eleven. Like, there's just nothing but stuff.
Yeah, no, he was definitely worth it. Paid himself in spades already.
So it's the Padres in the West, and it's the Mets in the National League. I'm glad that you said this, because I actually like that the Giants are kind of like this team that's on the side, because you guys play each other insanely. Like, those games are really meaningful. And I kind of like being the team that is kind of forgotten a little bit, because Giants they don't have the same level of superstars that your teams have. And so they're kind of like the little engine that could in that way. And it takes the pressure off when you're not expected to be good. Now, if they still play within 2 or 3 games of the Dodgers and Padres, and we're in July or August, then that changes, because then you're fighting for the third, you know, both wild cards coming out of the National League West. And then, you know, there is going to be some expectation, and we'll see what the Giants did to trade deadline, because they could look to try and trade for a bat. They are desperately in need of some hitting. But so far, I think they have over-delivered on their expectations. And as a fan who covers the team and watches them very closely, yeah, this is a much more fun season than thinking like, they're going to win one, then they're going to lose one, and that's just going to be who they are. So I like that they have played a lot better this season. Now, you as a fan, since 2010, the year that we started talking about, you've seen Buster Posey a lot in your life as
I have, unfortunately.
Dodgers fan. Buster Posey retires after 2021, and then he buys into the club. He's like got a small piece of the club, and then at the beginning of this year, he becomes the baseball operations head. Now he's back in your life again. Like, you thought you got rid of this guy, and he's back. What do you think about how he's doing?
Made some good moves. That's another thing that pisses me off. You know, he's made some not great moves, but good moves. I'm sure he's limited by the budget, but I mean, I'm thinking, you know, like a wrestling fan, you know, here's a player who's not gonna be in management. That's always a recipe for disaster. Yeah. So I'm just looking at this and I'm like, okay, here we go. But no, he's done a decent job. You know, not only, I mean, because I have kept up with the team as far as the management side of the Giants. I think he's done a good job for morale. I think morale was down, you know, with previous management. He's brought a lot of that up. He's a very fan-friendly manager as well. And he's done some good moves on the field too. So some of them haven't really worked out, but some of them have.
And you're an old school guy when it comes to baseball. The Dodgers are actually kind of at the forefront of some of the things that I don't really like about baseball right now. Like, openers and utilizing your bullpen, having a bullpen game, a lot of that stuff, which because of who was running the Giants before Buster came, somebody from the Dodgers organization, also from the A's organization, Farhan Zaidi, like there is a way to do things. And you mentioned Dave Roberts getting the monkey off of his back. Like he also had to kind of show a little bit that, yeah, like it's more than just like this partnership. Like I actually do matter on this club. I actually do manage the game, and it's not just flipping through a binder. Like, what do you think about all of that stuff that the Dodgers are kind of like really, really good at and get the most value out of? And then other teams, the Rays are also really good at. Other teams like the Giants, they try to duplicate it, and it just sucks. Like I hate all of that stuff, but you guys actually get value out of that stuff.
Well, we get value because we surround all that stuff with MVPs. You know, we got Mookie, Freddie, and Ohtani to carry the load, right? So when the house of cards collapses, you have those 3 MVPs to pick everything up. I'm like you. I hate it. I hate it because I've seen firsthand how much it blows up in our face, and it has. You know, again, if it wasn't for that solid foundation of like these multi-million-dollar players, we wouldn't be where we're at. And I'll readily admit that. The bullpen games are always a Russian roulette. Yesterday we had one, and we got blown out 11-1. It concerns me that this late in the game, and I will say another thing too. I think the Dodgers and maybe the Rays are one of the few teams that actually do this, because I was looking at the stats the other day, and on average, most starting pitchers give you 6 to 7 innings. Because I was thinking, why has baseball changed this much? But it hasn't really changed. It's our team that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our team is giving you 5 innings, and then here comes the bullpen for the last 4, and that seems to be the pattern. But then what you're doing is that you're taxing the bullpen, right? And then in the second half of the year, they're shot. And then what do? And we had that happen to us last year. We just kind of leapfrogged it and taped everything up to win the World Series. But from the pitching's perspective, you don't want to be number 1 in bullpen's innings pitch in June and be last in starting pitching, right? Because that's not sustainable.
Right.
And here we are again. Now I will say that the team has been plagued by injuries that, I don't know, man. It sounds like somebody put a hex on us, because it's just so unbelievable to me that our 5 starters are all gone. They're all gone within like a month, you know. And here we are again with the patch jobs again, like we were doing last year, calling out the AAA guys, giving like high leverage like short leverage guys into high leverage situations. So all these things are things that we're dealing with now in June, and that's concerning to me. That's one of the weak points that not a lot of people talk about, by the way. The Dodger pitching staff there's a lot of vulnerability right there right now.
Is the plan, or at least is what the team's saying, that let's patch it together through June, and then Glasnow and Snell should be able to come back? And if you guys saw Snell last year, it's exactly what happened last year, as he was probably the best second half starting pitcher in all of baseball. And he, I'm assuming that's kind of what the team is selling, is like, just wait for that. We're going to keep it together. Look at our record. We're still in first place. Just wait till these guys come back, and then we'll get on a run, and we'll just blow doors off of this thing.
Yeah. One of the things that Dave Roberts is really good at is punting games. He knows when to punt a game. He punted yesterday. That's why we had Kike Rodriguez in there pitching, or Kike Hernandez pitching in the 6th inning, because he said it himself. He's like, once the game got away from us, I wasn't gonna use my high leverage guys in a pointless game, so I threw in Kike in there, and he has no problem. Roberts is not one of those guys that wants to go 162-0. He's gonna punt some games for strategy. And that's what he's done. It's not fun as a fan to see that, especially if you're one of the people that's there live. Like when he's punt some games, but that's part of his strategy. He's thinking long term. So yeah, it's kind of a very risky strategy, but he loves to do stuff like that. He'll give a couple games to get 4 or 5, and it worked for him. Look, yesterday he punted the game. We won today because we had a fresh bullpen.
All right, before we get to our underreported stuff that we talked about, is there a question that you have about the Giants that you're kind of wondering about?
Yeah, I want you to kind of give me an analysis of some of the pickups that you guys made on the off season. Which ones have performed for you guys as expected? Which ones have underperformed? Which ones are kind of middle of the road? What are you thinking of the players that threw on the uniform for the first time in 2025?
I think the big one is obviously Willie Adames,
Mm-hmm.
and he has been like he's underperformed big time for his contract. He is the highest paid Giants player in Giants history. The
Yeah,
contract that
yeah,
they signed him
they
to.
made that clear when they first signed them.
And he has not had a good season. Now, in these first two games against the Rockies, he's hit home runs, and he also hit a single to start the eighth inning, which kind of kicked off their rally. Coors has helped a lot of people get out of slumps, so that is my hope with him. But the other thing, and this might be a little bit of the underreported thing as well. He's not playing good defense, and they brought
Right.
him onto this team because he's a solid defender and he could hit in the middle of the order, and he's just a really good clubhouse guy. Like that's his reputation is this guy works in your clubhouse and he's going to make your clubhouse stronger. But Adames has got to be the one. He's got to be the big bullseye as far as if you're going to say who's been the most disappointing. As far as some of the other guys that they brought in, they brought in some guys who actually aren't even on the roster right now. So they brought in a backup catcher, Sam Huff, and he's already gone. They already put him on waivers because he just wasn't available behind Patrick Bailey. There are some guys who are actually contributing who have actually been on the roster for like a little bit last year, and then this is like their big year. Robbie Ray, who's a former Cy Young Award winner, he came back from Tommy John in the back half of last season. The Giants had traded for him knowing he was going to miss the beginning of last season, and he struggled. He's coming off of Tommy John,
Mm-hmm.
and this year he's been one of the really bright parts of the rotation, and he's probably in the running, for being on the All-Star team. Landon Roop and Hayden Birdsong are really, really young pitchers who are in the rotation. Justin Verlander was brought to kind of stabilize a little bit, and he's actually been the worst out of all of their 5 starting pitchers. He's now currently on the IL. We'll see what happens with him coming back, but like the young pitchers are actually outperforming Verlander, who, I mean, the dude's like 40 some odd years old. But
Yes, 43, I think.
yeah, but yeah, I mean that the majority of the guys, like the big part of their team, are guys who they actually added last year and then they brought back. So someone like Matt Chapman, and this kind of leans toward, hey, maybe Farhan, was actually doing some really good stuff because he brought in Chapman last year, and there's some Chapman naysayers. I think people think he strikes out a little bit too much,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought him back and they re-signed him, and they gave him a nice deal. But I guess the word about bringing Chapman back was Buster was a big part of that. There was like some stuff with maybe Farhan and Chapman's agent. They weren't able to bring the deal across the finish line, and Posey had to actually take a little bit of control, and he wasn't even in that role yet as he was. So there's that, and Chapman has been great this year. But he did get hurt too, so he's going to miss the Dodgers series. And then guys like Jung-Hoo Lee, who get hurt last year, who's also a Farhan guy. So there's actually good evidence that Farhan is really good as far as evaluating talent and maybe even bringing guys in, but maybe he's overall not the best guy to run your baseball ops, and you guys have him in like scouting right now or something. So it's an embarrassment of riches. You take the thing that he's really good at and you just put him there, and you're like, yeah, come hang out with us for 2 years before another team who kind of wants to model what the Dodgers have done will bring you back and give you a second go around as a baseball ops guy.
Right. No, yeah. So okay.
All right, so let's get to. I like to localize this because baseball is such a local sport. The Dodgers are probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest national teams, though. You have the Yankees and the Red Sox are always getting a lot of ink because of where they play. But what is something maybe that the national coverage isn't talking about that you like about your team, what's underreported, but also something that maybe you don't like about their team that they're not talking about as well.
Are you talking about like marketing or just on the field
Just
stuff?
on the field, like, the national media's they're going to talk about Snell and Glasnow, and they're going to talk about Mookie Betts' toe, and they're going to talk about Freddie Freeman. Well, I don't know what Freddie Freeman was doing in the shower, man, but he's hurting his
Yeah,
ankle.
he took a bump. That's what
Uh,
happened.
and so like everybody knows that stuff, but what are some things that maybe the national media isn't really covering?
Well, I think one of the biggest stories is the rise of Andy Pajes, who was a rookie last year. Just phenomenal numbers,
He
and
might
and
make the
and
All-Star team.
hopefully he's awesome. And here's a guy that at the beginning of the season was struggling to keep his job. He was about to either get sent back to AAA or be designated for assignment. You know how it happens to be with these guys. But somewhere along the middle of April, something clicked, and this guy's been on fire. And I know locally as fans we joke because here's a guy that's making $700,000 a year,
Yeah.
and he's when it comes to like all the statistics, whether it's traditional statistics or Moneyball statistics, he's performing every range, right? And so and he gets no media coverage. Like everybody's focused, like you said, on all these MVPs, the rotation, but nobody's talking about Andy Pajes and how great he's been. I would put another guy that was very underrated and nobody was giving him any coverage was Tommy Edmonds,
Mm-hmm.
but when he got injured and he came back and he's struggling a little bit, he's starting to pick it up. But man, taking it from last October till the beginning of the season before he got hurt, I thought we had hit a gold mine with this guy. I'm like, why was this guy available? But now we're starting to settle down a little bit and starting to even out. But he's a guy that gets streaky, and so he's another dangerous player. Um, I
Before
think
you go to the other thing, Pajes, he's a Cuban, right?
yes.
How much with the Dodgers fan base, and I mean, I don't know how I can even ask this without me even thinking about what's going on in LA right now, but how much does nationality matter to Dodgers fans? Because I can remember Fernando Valenzuela, and he was like this really, really famous baseball player. And some of that was because of how the Dodgers fans just kind of loved having this Mexican pitcher, who didn't even speak English that much.
Oh, if
And
at all in the beginning, like
right.
nothing.
And so young and so crafty. Like, does nationality, like, do Latin speaking or Mexican speaking players, does the fan base really wrap their arms around those guys if they can actually play more than some of the other players? Do they think of them as like their guys?
It's a big deal, but it also depends on nationality because we don't have a lot of Cubans here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And there is cultural differences. But he's very quiet. He's a very shy guy. He doesn't give a lot of interviews. So he's one of those guys that has that silent charisma that's getting over. You could feel it in the stadium. Like he's just getting his work ethic is getting him over. But to answer your question, yeah, nationalities is very important because they own almost another one. I mean, I remember when he first came up in late 95, 96. I mean, it was Nomo mania, it was like he
Oh
was
yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And he was another another guy that broke barriers because he was one of the first. I'm not gonna say the first, but he was one of the first Japanese that came over. And he's a guy that really brought a lot of people to the stadium, from Japanese culture. So yeah, it definitely nationality plays a huge part in Dodger baseball. You also got to remember about Fernando is that the story of Dodger Stadium is a very dark story. They actually kicked people out of Chavez Ravine. Chavez Ravine is where Dodger Stadium is built,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually, they purchased the homes, of course, but then the people that didn't want to sell, they took them out by force. And so there was a lot of tension for many, many years, from the 60s all the way for about 25 years. The Hispanic community would not support the Dodgers because that was primarily a Hispanic community that was evicted to build Dodger Stadium. And it wasn't until Fernando came around where, he was like the olive branch to all the Hispanic community to come in and, change history, and so ever since then, the Dodger name has been rooted in like the Hispanic culture. You see a lot of Hispanics with LA Dodger hats, and they don't even like the team. They don't even know, So that symbol became a symbol connected to like the Hispanic culture as well. So yeah, it's a big deal. As far as Cubans, not so much, but this guy, I mean, he's getting over just on his work ethic alone.
Now you mentioned Japanese baseball players. The San Francisco Giants are on record as having the very first Japanese-born baseball player. 1964, Masanori Murakami was the very first. Obviously, he wasn't, this great player, which is why we don't really celebrate him or recognize him. You've mentioned Hideo Nomo, Ichiro, obviously as well. I even remember when you guys had Chan-Ho Park, who I believe was Korean, right? Was he Korean?
Right.
And so now the Giants, they are trying to do not really, because Jung-Hoo Lee is not the sensation that obviously that Shohei is, but I think the Giants are looking kind of at that blueprint of like, okay, how can we market Major League Baseball to Korea through one of the Major League guys who's actually come through and is the starting center fielder. If Jung-Hoo Lee actually becomes like an all-star, I could see some craziness as far as how famous he gets as well. But yeah, I love the nationalities of the teams. Obviously, Jackie Robinson is the first African American baseball player. So you guys have that as far as your history. But there's also other nationalities where it's not just about American born players, and baseball isn't that anymore anyways, but just the opportunity bringing over players from the Dominican and everything has been a big lore in both of these teams, which I think is very cool.
Yeah. And it is a little concerning that the African American population is kind of dwindling a little bit with players and with fans. But hopefully that's just the phase and it'll pick right back up. And I'm sure there's reasons for that. But I will say another thing that I love about baseball, because another thing too is that I've seen baseball all over the country. I've actually seen baseball all over the world, because I've seen baseball at the Tokyo Dome in Japan as well. And I lately I've been getting, I would say over the last 3 seasons, I've been getting into football because my brother's a huge Eagles fan, and he's been for years and years. And right now, I mean, they're on a streak right now. So I've gone to check out the Rams when the Eagles are in town. I've been to Laker games, and those are very like bros. Those are bro sport. I call those bro sports, right? Because it's a sport for the guys. They go out there, and it's very cathartic, the whole field experience. Baseball's different. Baseball's for families. It's for dates. It's a different vibe, and I love that, because I've been to a lot of baseball stadiums. I was in Colorado last year, and the Rockies weren't doing so good, but somehow the fans find a reason to believe, and that's everywhere. And I love to see that passion, because even if your team is in last place, you're still there supporting them, and you believe in them. And I don't know if there's a point where you're suspending disbelief and like, I'm going to pretend that we have a chance, but it doesn't matter, because I think baseball brings everybody together. It's so full of like these wacky rituals and traditions that you don't see anywhere else. Where else is the coach going to be wearing a uniform? You don't see that anywhere else.
Have you been to a World Baseball Classic game?
No, I haven't. I want to
go
to one.
That was amazing. I saw Japan. I think it was Japan and Puerto Rico when they were here in San Francisco. This had to be like, I don't think it's been quite 10 years, but it's probably been like 6 or 7. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Just the fans bringing in certain little instruments and drums and things that they do when they watch baseball games, and watching just watching how different that was than going to like a Major League Baseball game was really fun.
Yeah, and then it's so diverse. Just like what you see on the field, you see in the stands. Baseball, when you go, it's so diverse. The diversity, you see all kinds of ethnicities and cultures. Again, football and basketball, they're a little more niche, in my opinion. Even though football is the greatest spectacle in the world, is big and all these things, but it's still very much for a particular fan. So I love that about baseball. among many other things. It's changed a lot. Don't get me wrong. And I'm like you. I'm old school. I hate it. Some of these changes are, ridiculous to me. I hate the whole fucking extra innings rule with the guy on
Yeah,
second.
that's the worst one. But are
I,
you in on the DH though? You got to be in on the DH, or else Otani doesn't even get to be on the field.
yeah, but I'm the one that wanted Lindor to win the MVP last year. Remember, Otani? I'm very. If anything, if you should know anything about me, Gary, is that I try my best to be very unbiased on everything in life. So no, that I don't like it. I don't like it. I think the strategy of the game has changed, and the human game of chess is different now. But that's one of, I don't know, you learn to accept that because the American League has had it since I followed baseball.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some of these rules that I'm still having a hard time, coming to terms with. But not just the rules, also the culture of the game. I'm still having a hard time accepting that starting pitching doesn't have complete games anymore. That's weird.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yep. 100%. Okay, what's the underreported thing about your team that the national media isn't really talking about, that you're actually kind of worried about, that you think is a weakness of your club?
I think that we struggle a lot with runners in scoring position. I was checking the stats the other day, and I don't know how they call it with in the metrics. Is it RISP? I think it's RISP, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these Moneyball stats, I'm still getting used to. Yeah, we were like in the bottom, like I think we were in the bottom 5, which is weird because we're in first place. We got one of the best records, but we do struggle with runners in scoring position. And I think if you're going to be a World Series team, you need to have a good RISP. You have to, because that's what's going to win you ball games, obviously. So that's one of the things that's not being reported by the media. It's all focused on all the pitchers that are on the IL and how we're patching up the bullpen, which is concerning in itself. Don't get me wrong, but it's still, there's other little holes in our game that need to be attended to. And like, you were saying earlier, come July and August, we are going to be buyers. We're going to be in the business of buying, as are you guys, which is going to be weird. As are the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully we get to plug some of those holes.
So for the Giants, I would say the underreported thing about their team that is actually really good is I think they got the best bullpen in baseball. Now, from a team ERA standpoint, they 100% do. The one caveat is I don't think they've officially figured out their closer position. So Ryan Walker started the season as the closer. Camilo Doval took over just because he was pitching better, and Ryan Walker was actually having some struggles. Ryan Walker actually told the press, there was a quote in one of the articles that I read where he said he was very happy that Bob Melvin believed in him to put him out in the 9th inning because he doesn't know if he believed in himself. And I was like, okay, I don't want you pitching the 9th inning then. You just told Bob to not pitch you in the 9th inning anymore. So if they figure, if Camilo Doval settles down, now the reason why he was out of the closer position is because he had a terrible year last year, so much so that they sent him down in the minors to just kind of like, I don't know if it's to teach him a lesson or just to kind of open his eyes about the fact that he had not made it yet. It was not a done deal, that he was just this all-star superstar. So now he's back and he's pitching well, but these last 2 games in Colorado, he actually closed both of them out in not fantastic fashion, but they have this other arm who's a young kid named Randy Rodriguez who has been lights out. Now, the problem with Rodriguez is he doesn't often throw back-to-back days. So he's not, like, his arm is not that developed yet. So it'll be interesting to see what they do if you pitch Doval back-to-back games, like so tomorrow. The audio side, this game will be over because we're going to put this in the audio feed Friday morning. But for the people watching on YouTube, on Friday, Doval just pitched back-to-back games. He's not going to pitch on Thursday, is my guess. And I think Randy Rodriguez will close if they need a closer situation. So that'll be kind of interesting to see that happen. So I think they have the best bullpen in baseball if they can figure out the closer position. but that's an important one. That's the most important one. So that is, you're not hearing a lot about bullpens in June anyways, but I don't think people have really picked up on that. As far as the negativity or the thing that kind of worries me that is underreported, I already talked about Adames, and it was really more or less like, yeah, he's not hitting. He will probably start hitting at some point, but it was the defense that is a little frustrating, because if he plays really good defense, they have a possibility of playing really, really good infield defense. I think but the thing that you don't hear a lot of people talking about, I'm going to give you numbers of a player, and I'm going to guess that you have not really heard these numbers before. I don't expect you to, but the Giants have a Gold Glove catcher by the name of Patrick Bailey. The dude is lights out defensively. He's so good. He actually has he's good with the wins against replacement statistic, the WAR, simply because of defense.
Yeah. Shit.
Okay, this dude is hitting 185. He has 162 at bats. He's got 30 hits. He's hitting 185. Now, here's the problem. You would think, well, late in a game, in close games, you could bring in a pinch hitter. But like I just said, his entire value is defensively, and they play in all of these close games, so you don't even want to take him out. So he's basically up there. We talked about the DH. He's a pitcher hitting in the 9th spot. So the Giants don't even have the advantage of using a DH, because they have to use their catcher who's hitting 185. So that's not something that a lot of people are talking about. I do wonder, as we get to the doldrums of the season, the June, the summertime where things can go a little crazy, because that's in the wear and tear on your body. So last year, at the end, actually, it's at the beginning of this year, spring training, Mike Krukow, he's the Giants. Him and Dwayne Kuiper have been doing the broadcast for a long time now. They're the television team. Mike Krukow said Patrick Bailey was not in shape last year. He needs to get in better shape. And he was actually really hard on Bailey. So I was like, okay, Bailey must be hearing it from coaches. I don't think Krukow would just necessarily say that to say it. And so I think, okay, he's, if he just hits 240, we'll be fine. The dude is hitting 65 points less, or 55 points less than even 240. So terrible season offensively, and now he's even on the IL with a neck strain. But
so he's not even playing right now. So we're not gonna see him this.
You will not see him. You will not see Matt Chapman.
Okay,
you will not see Justin Verlander either.
We'll give Ohtani the green light to take off from first. Okay.
Yeah, he's got 11 stolen bases.
Okay, yeah, I know. We're on the same boat as you are with Michael Conforto. I got his numbers right here. They're horrible. This guy is batting 173. He's had 185 at bats, and he's got 32 hits. He's got a WAR of -0.6, which is bad. And this guy's getting paid $17 million for this year. When they signed him, I didn't know what was the justification behind it, and yet I still don't know. And Roberts has said that he's a late starter, this or that, but here it's already June, and this guy can't get on base. He's an easy out for the opposition. So I don't know I don't know, and I don't think nobody's gonna want to take him during the the trade deadline or whatnot. So and I know they probably don't want to DFA him because that's 17 mil.
Yeah.
So he's one of those players that he's playing just because of how expensive he is.
Yep. No, and I told you in the beginning, you were kind of excited because he started the season okay, and I was like, if he plays well for you, great, but he was a sunk cost for us the last 2 years, and it was just frustrating to watch him. Though the one positive thing about him last year, he had a good second half of the season. He just couldn't hit in our park. Like I think he had like some crazy stat of like, maybe in the second half of the season, he had the most home runs in like the other team's ballparks or something. There's some weird stat like that. So
yeah,
he could turn it around, but the problem is you guys aren't going to wait for him to turn it around. You're going to figure out because you have the opportunities to find those kind of players. So
Yeah, and then with us, upper management has been brutal when it comes to patience. Like they'll DFA you in a second.
Yeah.
I mean, they got rid of Chris Taylor this year, who was one of our top guys. Just from a perspective of being with the team for so many years. Austin Barnes, who's Kershaw's like personal catcher, he was released this year. So they don't have a lot of patience this year, but for whatever reason with him, they have been very patient. Even just giving him playing time. I mean, he's out there every day and just striking out. Um, Another unreported thing that people don't talk about Otani a lot is how much he strikes out, man. This guy strikes out a lot because he's always going for bombs.
Yeah.
So I would say, and this is just from visually. I have no stats to support this, but just he's striking out at least once a game minimum. Like I see it every day. Like he strike. Sometimes he's got 2 strikeouts in a game. The other day he struck out like 3 times in a game. So he swings for the fences and he misses a lot. So that's another thing that nobody ever talks about. They just talk about how great he is, and he's great. Don't get me wrong, but he strikes out a whole heck of a lot.
All right, I wanted to look at the Giants and Dodgers head-to-head record since the year 2000. I didn't want to go back to like the
60s. 2000. That's a nice, that's a good start. Okay.
So we'll go to the 2000s. And historically, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the franchises, the Giants have maybe a 5-game advantage or something.
Mm-hmm.
But since the year 2000, the Dodgers have a 23-game advantage in head-to-head regular season matchups against the Giants. Because I sort of was thinking, I was like, it feels like we have not played the Dodgers very well of late. So I wanted to look and go backwards. So last year, 2024, you guys went 9-4 against the Giants, outscored the Giants by 14 runs in those victories. The year before that, 2023, 7-6. You guys won those 13 games. Now we talked about the schedule. The schedule has now changed for all of baseball because of interleague play and the MLB wanting the schedule to be a little bit more balanced. So if you go back to 1962, which they didn't have nearly as many teams as they do now, and they only had 2 leagues, and I don't even know if they had divisions yet.
That's what we have to take into account, all the 27 championships that the Yankees have won.
Yeah,
the great Fowler, just they won most of those when there was only 8 teams in the entire league.
So the Giants and the Dodgers played 21 times. Then in 63, they changed it to 18, and it stayed 18 all the way until 1993. So for some reason, they changed this. I think this might have been the very first year of interleague play. I'm not 100% sure, though, because the Giants and the Dodgers only played each other 13 times. So that stands out. So 95, 96, 13 times, 97, 98, 12 times, 99, 13, 2012. Then it jumps back up to 19 in 2001. And it was 19 or 18 times that they've played every season until 2 years ago. And it's now back to 13 because of this balanced schedule. So I like the balanced schedule because that means we don't have to play you guys as much because you've had our number. 2022, the last time they played 19 games against each other, you guys won 15 out of those 15 games out of those 19, outscored the Giants 99-55. So it wasn't
that was when the Giants won 100 games, when you guys won the division, right? Or was that 2021?
That was the year after. In 2021, the Giants, that was the last time the Giants had the edge over the Dodgers. But that was only 10 games to 9 games. And then in the playoffs, you guys won 3 out of the 5. So they were basically 500 all season long, and you guys won the most important ones. And then 2019, you guys went 12-7. 2018, 10-9. 2017, 11-8. 2015 and 2016, the Giants actually won 11 out of the 19. And then the season that the Giants won their their third world championship. You guys won 10 out of those 19 games. The 2012 world championship that the Giants won, they won 10 out of the 18, and in 2010 they also won 10 out of the 18. So there were moments where the Giants were winning more games than the Dodgers, but of late, like since 2017, you guys have really been winning these series, and I don't sense that that's going to change much, though I would hope that of these 13 games, the Giants do a little bit better, and maybe it's like a 7-6 or something. But I thought it was kind of interesting that you guys just dominated. I felt like it. That was the eye test was like, yeah, they've just been killing us. But the data backed it up. Did you sense that you guys had actually been having our number of late too?
No, not until you told me those numbers. I think because the losses hurt more and they stay with me longer. So when the Giants beat us, it stays with me longer than when we win. So the pain takes over, and it's like, okay, well, you guys have our number, but no, it hasn't been the case. But there is a correlation there as far as being competitive, right? Because in your World Championship years, you guys did win the series. And then there's also the correlation. I think, I'll ask you, but I think the quote unquote dynasty era of the Giants, I believe the consensus, but you correct me if I'm wrong, is like 2016 was when that era of the team was kind of dismantled, right? I mean, that's the one. I think they did make it to the playoffs, if I remember, but they were eliminated like in the first round or something. So I think after that, the Giants started getting the reputation of being the old team in baseball, just because they had all these contracts that were like big and these players that were older. So during that span was when the Dodgers dynasty was kind of coming up. And I say dynasty, even though we don't have the rings to show for it, we've been pretty dominant. And of course, during that time, we're going to take more games because we were just what we were. I mean, what was it? We have like 4 seasons where we won over 100 games. In a row. So 4 or 5 seasons or something ridiculous like that. Not that we have much to show for it. Again, I'm all about the ring, baby. Like, I don't care about all these individual, but still, during that time, I would expect the Dodgers to have the Giants number and everybody else's number. They were winning 100 games, so it all makes sense when you see the numbers.
Yeah, if you take out that 2021 season, like you guys just stack up division titles. Like that's just how it's been.
Yeah,
like,
but we don't have those flags in our stadium.
The 2021 season was the one time since like the mid 2010s that you didn't win the National League West. Now, you're right. You don't have the championships for it, but you've had the chances. And the playoff baseball, you sort of mentioned Bruce Bochy. Like maybe he's not as good of a regular season manager as he is a postseason manager. And that was part of getting the monkey off of Dave Roberts' back, because he had to prove that he could make the right moves in the playoffs.
He was the opposite, right? He was the opposite for a long time. I mean, he's a guy that could take you through the season, 100 wins, and then once the playoffs comes, he chokes, for better or worse, he always chokes. So now, here we are, we'll see what happens. But yeah, Bruce Bochy was the opposite of that, struggled a lot during the season, but once the playoffs happen, he's a completely different manager.
Okay, let's get to the main event of this thing. We'll talk about our 5 most hated. And I did this with Brad. I already gave my list, but we'll go back and forth. We'll start with number 5 and then get to 1, because I just want to hear your thoughts on the guys that I found to be very hateable, and whether or not that surprises you, or you kind of thought that was the thing. Now, what I told on the Thompson and Clark show, some of it is just the player was good against us, and so that just makes them hateable.
My list is going to be the same. It's the player that's really good against us.
And some of it was, when I was a kid, who was the person that I was, I don't know, for whatever reason that I just latched onto, because there's going to be one of those on my list. But okay, so I'll start with my number 5, and then you can do your number 5. And this is a funny one, because you probably were too young to even see him play very much, if at all. But when I first started watching the Giants, so I would say it would be like 1983, and my dad had season tickets in 85. So I was kind of like 83 to 85 was like those early years of my fandom. And the Dodgers had a leadoff hitter, second baseman who just seemed to
Yeah,
always get on
Saxy. You're talking
base.
about. I know all about
Steve
Saxy.
Sachs, like he would just get on base, steal second, and I just like, man, like this guy annoys me. Now the tail end of his career is not that good because he all of a sudden just for whatever reason couldn't throw to first base anymore. Like I don't know what that deal was, but
And he was in the dark ages of the Yankee organization. He was in that era.
My first ever, of course, Lasorda, but I actually I wouldn't say that I hated Lasorda as much as
Wait a
I
minute,
just
you're
liked
going to number 4?
No. That he's the manager, so I didn't actually put him on my list. But I was saying that Sachs was the first guy that I truly hated, but I didn't hate Lasorda because he was kind of comical to me in a way, and he was always like, doing funny stuff and falling on his ass and rolling around in the grass and stuff like that. So I sort of saw him as someone to make fun of. But Sachs was just kind of a thorn in the side a little bit when I first started watching, and so that's why he was hateable to me.
Yeah, and Tommy Lasorda was also the ring announcer at WrestleMania 2 in the main event.
He was
with Bundy and
I forgot
Hogan.
I forgot about that. All right, who's your number 5?
Well, let me comment a little bit about Saxy first.
Okay.
I knew I got the residue of Saxy because by the time he left LA and went to New York, he was kind of beloved right here because, like you said, he had his prime years in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody would talk about him, like all the older heads that I would talk about baseball with. Would always bring up Steve Sachs, because I think we got Juan Samuel to replace Saxy and he wasn't cutting it. So it was like everybody was always talking about wanting Sachs back. So as I became a baseball fan, right, I started keeping up with all these other teams. I always kind of kept an eye on Steve Sachs for that reason. And like you said, I mean, his numbers dwindled, and he's one of those guys in that forgotten era of the Yankees lore. The one that the Don Mattingly years that nobody talks about. And so, yeah, I remember him vividly, but it's interesting that he was one of your more hated guys. So I'm going to hit you with my first one. And again, like you said, this is more nostalgia. This is more how they affected me, not so much how because I could say like Bobby Thompson or Juan Marichal, but I'm not going to say those guys. I'm going to keep it to what affected me in my era. And the first guy would be Royce Clayton. Because Royce
wow.
Clayton, yeah, or should I call him Hoyce Clayton? Just so we can connect it back.
If he was a jiu-jitsu expert, he would be Hoyce for sure.
But Royce Clayton, I mean, I have these vivid memories of him of just being a Dodger killer. He was the shortstop for the Giants for a long time, and that the combination of him and Will Clark just pissed me off to no end. Because Will Clark's also on this list, but I'll get to him later. But Royce Clayton was one of those guys. I went to 2 Dodger games as a kid, and in both of those games, he hit a home run against the Dodgers.
Wow!
So I was like, nah, this guy's not one of the ones that I liked. He's another guy that also kind of flamed out. He had a solid career, better than Steve Sachs, I think. But towards the end, he struggled, and he's kind of flamed out. But yeah, Royce Clayton is my number 5.
So
what do you think of Royce Clayton?
Okay, so I was where I grew up, and I still live very close there, is where the Giants single A team is, the San Jose Giants. And so I got to see Royce Clayton come up as a really young player when I would go to see San Jose Giants games when I was a little kid. So when I am a senior in high school, I'm a middle infielder, but I'm a second baseman is like my best position. And all of our seniors graduate, and not a lot of juniors played. So I got to play a decent amount as a junior, but like almost every position, all the starters are gone. So my senior year, we are coming off of like one season where we win CCS in this kind of like unbelievable fashion. Like nobody took our high school seriously. We beat Bellarmine and Sarah like all the way through. And then in 94, we're just trash because we lost all of our players. So I have to play shortstop. And the way that I kind of really, really, prepare myself to play is I create a highlight tape of Royce Clayton taking ground balls, like live ground balls. So I got the clicker. You remember the old VCR where you got the clicker?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm watching live games, and if I see a ground ball hit to shortstop, I have to click record, knowing that it's going Royce's way. And sometimes it's just a base hit, and it's like, oh my gosh, this. I don't want this. But so I'm watching him like go to his backhand. I'm watching him go up the middle. Like I'm watching all of these things because I wasn't really a shortstop growing up. And so I learned how to play shortstop by just watching him and studying his tape. Now, he had an excellent 1993 season. I think he even won the Gold Glove that year, and then just went downward after that. I think he ended up with the Chicago White Sox. He may have had some other stops.
He became a journeyman after a while.
Yeah, but for 1993, I was like, oh, we have the shortstop for the next 10 years. That did not happen. He did not become that guy.
Right. Good. Who's your number 4?
All right, my number 4 is I kind of had I had to think about this a little bit because now if this was the list for Madison Bumgarner, this person would be number 1.
Well, he's also on my list, by the way.
For whatever reason, Yasiel Puig and Madison Bumgarner just hated each other. Puig would get a hit off of Bumgarner, sometime maybe a home run, and he would stare at it, and Bumgarner would yell at him, and then Bumgarner would strike him out, and then he would yell at him, and Puig, would do stuff. They just pissed each other off. So Madison Bumgarner, I'm sure if he was not a Giants player, I would be like, what is wrong with this guy? Like why is he so mad all the time? Why does he care about so many players not running to first base, hard enough? Like just these things, these old school things. But that was just how he played baseball. So my biggest worry, and also with Matt Kemp, my biggest worry was that Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp were going to be like the best players in baseball. We're going to have to face these guys for 20 years. And they were both good. I think Matt Kemp even won an MVP. Good ball players, but they didn't stay that great as I thought they were going to be. So if Puig was a better player, he would have probably been a lot higher on my list. I think he's actually still playing. Like,
yeah, he plays all over the world. He's in the Mexican League right now.
I saw another thing where there was another bench clearing brawl because of something he did in the.
He's still fighting. He's still out there putting on a show for people.
But yeah, like I think now those were not seasons in which the Dodgers were beating the Giants. Those were during the seasons where the Giants were winning the championships. But the Dodgers were also had some good teams. So. He was one of their better players, and it was just a lot of it was also just Bumgarner though, because he was just so fiery, and for some reason Puig just pissed him off.
Yeah, Puig was a very immature guy. He got a lot of local press for pissing a lot of people off. He's got an interesting story. He was actually smuggled here from Cuba.
Oh wow!
Because he had so much talent, and then somebody in the mafia kind of hit him up, and they were like kind of blackmailing him for money. It was a big thing, but he was here, and he developed as a ball player. He's a great ball player, but his attitude was, left more to be desired. So as soon as his contract was over, I mean, they signed him for a lot of years, but once it was over, I mean, they shipped him off to the Reds, and then, he kind of jumped around after that, still throwing down, still, looking for fights. But he was definitely a controversial character here in LA. So yeah, for sure. And some people liked him, some people hated him, especially because he had those weird rituals where a lot of people found it disrespectful to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would stick his tongue out, kind of like the Juan Soto shuffle, that he doesn't really do anymore. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
right, who's next?
So my next guy would be Mad Bum, man.
Yeah, I can see that.
Madison Bumgarner for the same reason,
yep.
But just flip it. It's like. Because again, Puig was a very immature, like I just stated, but he was. What does Jim Cornette say? He's an asshole, but he's our asshole. That's how we saw it. And then, to me, like Mad Bum just represents that era of the Giants that I hate, that very, because you got to understand when the Giants were on top for those, every other year, it just, they have this, from our perspective, not saying this is how it really was, there was like a smugness to them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was this idea that they were like deserving of these titles, especially when they won the third one, because that really, at that point, they could really brag that it was every other year. But then again, it was every other year. What happened? Again, I talked a lot about the flaws in the playoff system,
Yeah.
and just in baseball in general. And it's like, there's something, as much as the Giants are celebrated for that era, and they should be, three, that's not easy to do. It's not easy to win one, let alone three. What about that big, like, hole that, they were not competitive the following year, every year, you know? They didn't even make the playoffs every other year.
Nope.
And there's something to that. But anyways, going back to Madison Bumgarner, yeah, he was just like a very moody guy. It seems like a lot of it was, when we played you guys, a lot of it was geared towards us, tailored towards us.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that is like, this motherfucker was so good in the playoffs. That's really the thing that would really upset me, So yeah, so that would be my
I went
number four.
to an opening day game. I'm trying to remember what year this was. They played the Dodgers, actually. So I got to see Giants-Dodgers home opener for the Giants.
There was a lot of those back in the day. They would always open against the Giants, either at here or in San Francisco.
Bumgarner hit 2 home runs.
Yeah, he won like 2 Silver Slugger awards.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, come on, man. And you know what it was? It was just that whole pitching staff of that era, that pitching rotation that was pretty awesome. The Williamson come in there, and those guys. It was like, man, like, there was a little hate in there. I readily admit that, but it was just that smugness that, because one thing I wanted to ask you, and I think this is a pretty interesting question. How did the fandom change? Because again, the Giants were not winning before 2010. I mean, and they hadn't really done any noise. I think 2002 was the last time, up into 2010. So what was the change that you saw? Like, obviously, there's going to be a lot of bandwagon jumpers, which is expected everywhere. I think the fandom was also, that was very annoying to me, because they had waited years to throw this in our faces.
Yeah.
Eddie DiBiase, God bless him, he still throws it in my face. Like, an old buddy of ours. But like, how did the fandom change when they started winning all these championships?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because of where the Giants had previously played, Candlestick Park, it was such a terrible place, though it was my first park, so I had a little bit of love for it. And there was this idea that, oh, if you don't go to the games, you're not a diehard fan. Like, it's just this, this is our place, and it shows how tough you are to come, and it's freezing cold and it's windy. Like, that was kind of the mentality. And then in 2000, when the current Oracle Park, but back then they called it Pac Bell Park, and then it became AT&T. They had the seat licenses and all that, so I'm sure the demographics, and it was in downtown San Francisco versus Candlestick Park was not even in San Francisco. It was like in the south, in the south area. And I guess it's still technically San Francisco, but it was like far away from what you would.
Was it kind of like where the Cow Palace is at? Was it around there?
No, that's Daly City. That's even further away. But it was still technically San Francisco, but not in the city like the current park is. And so obviously the demographics changed a little bit. They were paying, for Barry Bonds' contract. So, you really had, and this was not the reason why it took so long to get the stadium, the ballpark built, is because the taxpayers kept saying no, that they weren't going to pay. So this was the team and the ownership paying for this stadium.
This was before regional TV, right? I think.
No, they had regional TV. It probably blows up. It becomes like a big booming business a little bit later, which is kind of how the Warriors explode because of the sports channels and the Bay Area sports channels and stuff. But anyways, so because you have Barry Bonds, and because the team is fairly competitive from 2000 to 2004, they were in the running. The Dodgers are knocking them out a couple of different times. I think the Dodgers knocked them out in
Oh, 04, I was there.
okay,
The Steve
04.
Finley home run.
So they, they are competitive, but they are also on the back of Barry Bonds. And so from 2005, when they're starting to not be good, through 2007, which is the last season that he's on the team, it's the home run chase. It's the home run record. So that's kind of the marketing for the season or for the team. And then Barry is gone. And so then it's about the younger players, Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, Pablo Sandoval, and guys like that. Buster Posey eventually comes, Madison Bumgarner. So you kind of get through this period of like being fairly competitive, but you're on the back of Barry Bonds, really. That's how it is. And then by the time Barry is gone, and he probably still could have played. I think he feels like he was blackballed a little bit, but then you had like one or two kind of years that we had to deal with, and then 2009, and they're actually starting to get good again. So they only had like 2 years without Barry, where you were kind of like wondering what was going to happen, and then boom, then they're good. So there wasn't really an opportunity for them to lose fandom, I don't think. Now, post 2014, post 2016, there's some tough years because they had like all of these sellouts, like these consecutive sellouts, and that kind of died at some point. And then it died in a way where you could tell they were fudging these numbers. This was like WrestleMania attendance numbers.
Yeah.
Like you could tell, you're like, they're announcing sellouts on the scoreboard, and you're looking around and going like, I guess 15,000 people just decided not to show up today. It was kind of one of those things.
They counted the hot dog vendors and the popcorn, like Bruce.
And so now I think the team, the real that they're at this tipping point in a sense where if they're not good, they may lose a little bit of the steam that they've had, because now that ballpark, I think it turns 25 years old this year. So they have to be competitive if they expect to be the same importance level as they have been, because the Warriors overtook them. The Warriors are now also in San Francisco, and the 49ers, even though they're in Santa Clara, the 49ers are 10 minutes away from me, and they are still a much bigger deal than the Giants in the Bay Area. But the Giants have all the history and all the lore. It is also really just kind of like baseball's less importance in overall sports as well. But the Giants actually have to put on some good teams, or they could get lost in this Bay Area a little bit.
I do. There is a correlation. Again, in my travels, I try to do kind of like these internal studies that are not supported by science or facts or anything or numbers, but I do see this idea of like the more conservative cities do have a bigger following. There's more of a connection, right, because of the tradition. Whereas kind of like the more progressive cities, they're like, and I mean, it doesn't get more progressive than San Francisco. I mean, so there's a lot of youth movements there and stuff like that. So baseball is not going to be at the top of their to-do thing, just because people that are not baseball fans, when they think of baseball, they think of like an old-time sport, and it's not something that young people gravitate toward unless they're being introduced to it by someone else. So I could see why Giants baseball is not a priority there. But I guess what I meant more is not so much that they lost the fandom or whatever, but the fandom that came after the championships, because to me that's the fandom that's not earned. A little bit
more corporate, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
The Giants, that it became a hot ticket, and some people couldn't afford it. Though I will say baseball is still much more affordable than any of these other sports because there's so many games. The Warriors are the real corporate team out here. Like, you can't get into that place and sit in the first level for like less than $300 these days. At least that's been my experience.
That's 80. That's how many home.
They have 40. Yeah, 41 games. The kind of the hottest ticket in town right now is the WNBA team, the Golden State Valkyries, which we just, we have a podcast, a Golden State Valkyries podcast on this network, because we started to see, and my son was really getting into the women's college basketball and then the WNBA from the perspective of like, oh, this thing is actually growing, and it's, I could see it coming. And so he started following it a lot more closely. And then when I saw that we were getting the Valkyries, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, I'm going to follow this team like I follow the Warriors. And I don't know how many Valkyries podcasts are out there. I haven't seen any other than ours. I'm sure if I look there, I could find more. But
Right.
yeah, it's been a nice little boon for our YouTube channel because there's not a lot of content out there yet. Especially in following it, kind of like how I would follow the Giants or how you follow the Dodgers. So that is pretty interesting to watch so far. Is just the origin story of like a brand new team in a league that is growing in popularity, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, and again, we look at the correlation there with, it's very much women, so it's a progressive city, and it's going to get the support. And I would like to see how the other cities are doing that have WNBA teams. I know here, like the Sparks, I mean, they're like whatever, they're not really making a lot of noise one way or the other. But I mean, LA has so many options. There's so much competition here. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. Where were we at?
I think
it's your turn. Yeah, because I said Mad Bum. It was your turn.
Okay, that was your number 4?
Yes.
Okay. So my number 3 is, I'm gonna go. So I had a tie for number 2.
Oh.
I will lean Clayton Kershaw for this one. The most of it is because he's dominated us. When you saw Kershaw on the mound, you're like, okay, 90% this game we're losing.
He's dominated everybody during that time.
So much so, just me mentioning the name Clayton Kershaw right now, I think Brandon Belt may have just woken up in a cold sweat. You never saw worse numbers against a specific pitcher than you saw Brandon Belt against Clayton Kershaw.
I think you guys are going to see him on Friday. I think he's up.
Is it? Oh, we'll see. I don't know if it's. I don't know if this 87-mile-per-hour version of Clayton Kershaw.
No, that's what I say. I hope you guys are getting a good laugh or a nice thrill, or it's very cathartic.
With the Giants' offense, he may still dominate them. Just because
I've said a lot of hot takes. I don't think Kershaw should be playing at a major league level anymore. I mean, you know what? It makes me sad because they keep on. I don't want to say excuses, but they keep on justifying his outings. Oh, he's coming back from injury. This is his spring training. But you look at him and he's got nothing. Like you said, 87 miles per hour, so we'll see how it goes. But every time he pitches, I get nervous. So
now, on your list of all-timers, like your favorite players, does him being a awesome regular season player and not a great postseason player, does that hurt your fandom of his?
No, because I saw his whole career.
Yeah,
I was there. I could actually say I was there during his first game when he was 20 years old, back in 2008. Me and my buddy Carlos were there, and we didn't know at the time, obviously, but that was his big call-up game, and he established his legendary career. I do worry that some of his later years are going to hurt him a little bit. I thought for sure he was going to be first ballot if he had retired maybe last year or maybe 2 years ago, but his decline has definitely come in waves. It hasn't been something that we just started this year. I mean, I would say 2023 was when he really started to show it. And now it's like he just shouldn't be out there. He shouldn't be. And he's a young guy. He's 38, even for a pitcher, but he started when he was 20 years old. So he's been
a lot of miles on that arm.
18 years.
I still think he's an easy first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best pitchers of the 2010s.
For sure.
He's like in the top 5, I would guess.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys that was coming out of the steroid. Not he didn't pitch in the steroid era, but he was one of the first waves of those guys that were coming out of it. He definitely should be the first ballot still, but I do worry about him nowadays. And I think with him it's sad. You know what it is with him? The monkey that he has on his back. He really wants a ring with him saying he contributed to that ring.
Yeah,
because he's got 2 of them, but he hasn't really contributed to those championships. And what makes me kind of sad as a fan is that his legendary years were in a time when we weren't doing that much as a team.
Yeah.
So that's where his legacy's at.
I
Yeah,
love the meme though. I love the memes of him with his head in his hands in the dugout.
yeah,
I love those.
and then there's a lot of footage of him choking in the playoffs, man, and that's another thing. And that came in all eras of his career.
You know
So,
what though? You know who else doesn't have a ton of rings? Guys like Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, and it's hard, man.
but they have one. I
They
mean,
have
they
one.
contributed 95. No, you know who doesn't have a ring at all, and it makes me happy is Barry Bonds. That's who doesn't.
I imagine we'll hear him on this list in a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit.
he's coming up. He's coming up.
All right, who's next for you?
All right. Oh well, I don't have to look it up on my phone. It's Will Clark.
Oh, okay.
And Will Clark, he's wacky. He's got a podcast now. You know, he knows his audience. He knows what he has to say. And you know what? Will Clark has charisma as a player.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing we haven't talked about is how some of these guys have like charisma, actual charisma. And he did everything from the way his batting stance, which was wacky, to his interviews. The only reason why I hated this guy is because he was a Dodger killer. Like I pulled up his numbers. He batted 367 against us in his career.
I wonder if that's like the highest in his career for any team. I would guess.
Because we played the Giants a lot, so he had a lot of at bats. And that in itself is enough for me to hate him. I mean, and traditionally he was batting I think Matt Williams used to be the fourth. He was the fourth guy, the cleanup hitter. So he was always either batting 2 or 3. So he always had a chance to run guys, get some RBIs on us too, not only hits. So yeah, man, that guy he was too much for me as a kid.
And his prime is probably right when you start watching, because his best seasons are you'd probably say 87, 88, 89. He 91, he's starting to get injured. And then what's actually interesting is when he leaves the Giants, he actually had some pretty good years in Texas and Baltimore, but his body is shutting down on him because infamously he never lifted weights. He thought it was bad for his swing, so he didn't really stay in shape like that. And so he probably could have had a little bit of a longer career if he took care of his body.
And now we see he definitely doesn't lift weights. We see that
he's got I think he carries a bowling ball underneath his shirt or something.
He's like when Roddy Piper came back in 2003, right?
And then very similar.
Derek was looking at him like, "Are you pregnant?"
So historically, obviously, the name of the show that kicked off our network is Thompson to Clark, just because.
So Dodger Killers. Thank you.
Brad and I, we're growing up in the mid to late 80s, and that's what really takes off for Giants baseball is 1986 through 93, and then Barry kind of takes over after that. But it's Robbie Thompson, and it's Will Clark, and it's Matt Williams, like you said, and it's guys like that kind of really get our fandom going. So that's
so that Thompson is not for Bobby Thompson from like 50.
No, it's actually Robbie Thompson, who was the second baseman on those teams, because he was my favorite player when I was growing up.
I see. So. Okay. Well, that makes sense now, because I saw from Thompson to Clark, and I'm like, they're talking about Bobby Thompson here with the Giants win the pennant. Giants. That was what.
What's funny about that stuff is, obviously being a historian, like I was when I was growing up, I would read all of the stories and all of the books that would come out, and you always heard that call was always one of the famous calls that you would ever hear. And then when you actually kind of read through the history of the Giants, my dad, and he has his list too, but it's mostly all like old school guys. Most of his childhood was the Giants finishing second to the Dodgers and not making the playoffs. Like, that was a lot of it.
Right.
And so he saw just nothing but Dodgers teams going to the playoffs and to the World Series, and the Giants not doing any of that because they would always fall short of the Dodgers.
Right. I've thought about this as far as like if the baseball had more of a like wild card division back in the day, because for the people that don't know, like baseball was an all or nothing game. up
Mhm.
into like 94, 95 when they introduced the playoff brackets. Because you just won your division, you play the other division, and that was it. So I believe for every playoff run, there was only 4 spots
Yeah.
available. You know, which is insane because you had some good teams that just didn't get to go to the playoffs. Like they just couldn't go because they were in second place. And so it was very difficult to win a championship back then. I mean, it still is, but it was even more so back then.
The number one player on my hated list comes from the last year before the wild card. Just to give you a little, you can think about that one. But that reason alone is for my most hated Dodger ever. But
is it Mike Piazza?
well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Because 93 was that last game was bad. Okay. So I said mine. I said, well, Clark, you're next.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2, I think this one will surprise you, but this guy, I feel I didn't look up the numbers because I almost didn't want it to not be true. For some reason in my brain, and this was over this guy's career, not only as a Dodger, because I don't remember how long he was on the Dodgers. Kevin Brown drove me nuts.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he was hated by the Dodger fans too.
So he was a weird kind of quirky guy. It just felt like every time he pitched, like there's no possible chance. Now he was tied with Kershaw for me, and the reason why he won out over Kershaw is probably again because a lot of Kershaw's main years was when the Giants were winning World Series. And, you know, not that the Dodgers won any World Series with Kevin Brown, but those late 90s Giants teams, I was just like, man, could we ever just get over the hump? Like, we got the best player in the game, and we always get stuck. And for whatever reason, the Dodgers sometimes are the ones closing us out and being the reason why we don't get to go to the, to the playoffs. So Kevin Brown, just whatever, he just annoyed me. Just the stuff that he said, he could back it up too. He could like call his pitches before he threw them, and you still couldn't hit it. It was stuff like that where I was like, man, I hate this guy so much.
He got a ring in Florida, just because he was a young guy. Kevin Brown, the first $100 million pitcher in baseball history.
Wow.
7 years, 100 mil. So you could imagine the expectations that we had for that guy, which he never met him, by the way. Even though you see him as the Giants killer or as the guy who was really good, he never really lived up to the hype here in LA, and people hated him because again, first 100, and he would cut promos saying he was the first $100 million pitcher, like just like, and it's like, why are you doing this? So
I looked it up. He was only on the Dodgers for 5 years, but he was still really good in those 5 years up until his 38 age. And then he finished his career with the Yankees. He was not as good as he was in Florida and then previously in San Diego, but still, for whatever reason, I just felt like every time he pitched against us, we did not have any chance whatsoever.
Do you know who was the second $100 million pitcher? When I tell you, it's gonna make sense.
No, I don't.
It was Barry Zito back in 2003 or 4, and that made the big headlines. Now, did he deliver for the? Because he also had some heat on him, right? Yeah.
It would have been 2007, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
He was one of the most disappointing players in Giants history until 2012, because
I remember
he pitched very well against the Cardinals in the NLCS, and when the Giants were down 3-1 and came all the way back to win the series, and then they go to Detroit, or the Detroit comes here for game 1, and I'm there for game 1 of the World Series, Giants and Tigers. Pablo Sandoval hits 3 home runs off of 2 of them off of one Justin Verlander. And Barry Zito is the guy on the other side starting game 1 of the World Series. He only went like 5 innings, but the Giants killed them in that game. So he got the win, and they swept them. So
And he retired after that. That was it, right? After that season.
That's a good question. I don't remember exactly, but it was kind of like when they won that World Series, and when, like you said, with the Kershaw thing, when he was a big part of it, we forgave him for that BS contract that he signed, and because he could never live up to it. He was already on the other side of his prime by then, so it was a really kind of a dumb signing at the same time. But after for 2012, we forgave him. It was all good.
Yeah, he was one of those first generation of Moneyball guys that got all those big contracts, thanks to Billy Bean. So a lot of these guys should thank Billy Bean for that. Okay, so now my number 2. I'm gonna cheat a little bit, but you never said the rules, so it's not really cheating.
No, you can do whatever you want.
I'm gonna say Bruce Bochy.
Okay. The big old headed Bochy.
Again, a guy who gave me hope, especially I think it was 2012 where you guys were struggling. Yeah, it was 2012 where you guys were struggling in around July, and I was like, okay, we're good. And then the 2011 wasn't good at all. I think you guys finished like either at 500 or I don't want to say below 500, but
so you know what happened in that season?
What?
Buster Posey tears up his knee. Do you remember?
That's right. He was out for a year.
So he's out for the whole season. So the Giants, because their pitching staff is amazing that season, they're actually still competing. So what do? They trade for Carlos Beltran, and you know who they trade away? Zach Wheeler.
Oh shit!
So Carlos Beltran's only there for that half of a season, and he wasn't fantastic, but you needed that guy in the middle of the lineup, and they did fall short. They didn't have Buster Posey, and then he came back in 2012 and he won the MVP.
Yeah. So anyways, like we talked about it earlier, Bruce Bochy was the guy who was a middle of the road manager during the season, but really picked it up in the playoffs. So he's a guy that worked with my emotions because I saw them struggle, even in the championship years. It wasn't like this runaway. Giants had never had a runaway train. Maybe in 2010, I would say. So I was always like, okay, I always like to see the Giants lose. Mm-hmm. So, but he would always find a way, man. He would always find a way. And then once they're in the damn playoffs, Mad Bum would become the greatest pitcher of all time, and Lincecum would be amazing. And there's Bruce Bochy cutting the promos in the big old trophy, and I was like, "Fuck!" Another year, and then we had the greatest player in our generation with Kershaw. He's got nothing to show for it for all these years. So yeah, man, it was frustrating. So
did you also hate him when he was managing the Padres?
No, because he wasn't as successful. This is straight up me being a hater. I'm like, it's just the jealousy of it all, and just like, fuck, like we should be up there, because we had good teams during those years, but we just couldn't get the job done.
All right, before I get to number 1, which you kind of already called it, I want to give you just other guys.
And everybody knows my number 1.
Just guys who were kind of in the honorable mention list. Oral Hershiser, okay. I did not put on the list because he also then pitched for the Giants late in his career. Not that I loved him when he was on the Giants, but you kind of you hate him a little bit less because now you got to root for him. But Oral Hershiser, in 1988, oh my God, that dude was a madman.
Yes,
that's one of the best pitchers I ever seen in my life. In 1988 was Oral Hershiser. Other guys,
58 scoreless innings or something like that, which is ridiculous.
Other guys, Eric Gagne, because he's a guy who got it. He didn't get it as hard as the hitters when it was clear to me that he was just as juiced up as all these other guys.
Yeah. He was a cheater. That's right.
Steve Finley, for the reason that you mentioned.
I was there at that game.
He can't be on that list because he wasn't on. He was. It was only for that one moment, but it was a very hurtful moment. Jeff Kent, who was on the Giants, but even when he was on the Giants, we didn't really like him that much. And then when he went to the Dodgers, but I went back and I looked up his numbers on the Dodgers. He was not that good on the Dodgers, so that lessened it a little bit.
Yeah, he was past his prime.
I mentioned Matt Kemp, but it was just because he was really good. Manny Ramirez, same thing, but then he gets caught up in the steroid stuff.
Manny would, baby. He was a big draw for us.
Yeah.
Those 2 years he was there.
Justin Turner, he's just kind of annoying. Like you just look at this guy with
Him
red
and Max
hair.
Muncy are guys that you guys traditionally hate.
Well, Max Muncy, you mentioned Max Muncy, so I asked Brad. I said, do you hate Max Muncy? And he's like, yeah, I get it, because he beats up on the Giants and specifically Bumgarner. But at the end of the day, there wasn't really anything there like with a Puig or something where, you're just like, okay, tip your cap. This dude just owns us right now. And also, if he was a more consistent player and a better player, I think that would also make him more hateful. But the person who is my most hated player of all time also had Dodger ties. But again, it was at the end of his career, and it didn't really matter that much. Chase Utley is my most hated player of all time. I hate that dude. Oh,
but
my God.
I think you hate him whether he's wearing a Dodger uniform or not. Like a lot of people do.
Because of the Phillies, because the Giants had like a nice little 2-year thing with the Phillies, and that dude was just like his nose was like up in the air constantly. I was like, who is this guy? He's good, but he's not that good to act like that. And then there was in the NLCS in 2010, Jonathan Sanchez, who was a young Giants pitcher back then. I think he threw it close to him or maybe even hit him, and Chase is like, getting all fired up. And I think the Giants catcher, I don't know if it was this time or another time, but the Giants catcher, Chase was doing his thing, and the Giants catcher did like a 180 and jumped from his squat to right in front of Chase's face and was like, okay, now what's up, man? So that's how much they didn't like that guy. Okay, so those are just my honorable mentions. You got it. It's Piazza, and it's because of 1993. That year was maybe the most aggravated. And I'm graduating, or maybe I'm a junior in high school or something. So, I'm playing a lot of baseball. I'm watching a lot of baseball. The Giants are good. They got Barry Bonds. This is the most attention they've gotten on their team since I was even watching them. And then all they got to do, first, all we need, you mentioned the Colorado Rockies earlier. Yeah. If the Braves just could lose one game to the Rockies, we don't have this problem. But they can't. They sweep the Rockies for the entire season in that expansion year. So the Giants and Solomon Torres, Dusty Baker taps the young kid to start the game, the AAA phenom, and he just can't do it, doesn't have it. Piazza, I think, goes deep. That was his rookie year where he's rookie of the year. And I was just like, I hate this guy so much. And when they had the New York World Series, the Mets and the Yankees that one year,
right?
Remember when Roger Clemens was like all jacked up on juice or whatever, and like threw the sawed-off bat like right at Mike Piazza?
Yes, he did.
A normal human would have sided with Piazza, but I hated Mike Piazza so much I sided with Roger. I was like, yeah, I'm with Roger. I wish you would have hit him with that bat. This sports hate. It's not real hate, but that's how much I dislike Mike Piazza.
Well, he was very beloved in LA, and when he left, we were very, very upset. We had a new general manager come in here, and he completely dismantled the Dodgers. I think it was Bautista. I think that he's still around. But he kind of redid the entire team, and he shipped Piazza off to the Marlins. People forget that he went to the Marlins, and then he went to the Mets. And we got Charles Johnson. Remember that guy?
I remember him.
We got him, and it wouldn't be till we got Paulo Duca that we were able to solidify somebody as a catcher many years later. But Mike Piazza was one of the greatest. I took a big offense to the fact that his Hall of Fame ceremony, he was in a Mets jersey. That really bothered me, because we actually compared numbers, and he was with us for 7 years. He was with the Mets for 7 years, and they're pretty comparable. It wasn't like he had this amazing career with the Mets, and he was. So I don't know, man. And the fact that Tommy Lasorda is his grandfather, not his grandfather, his godfather. That was even a slap in the face too, But I think Piazza was very upset when he got shipped out of here. I think it caught him by surprise. He wasn't expecting it, so he kind of held a grudge for many minutes. Probably still does, for all I know.
How was he as was he as beloved, or were people kind of like, he's good, but because I sort of felt like there was a little bit of like maybe he's not as clutch as we want him to be, kind of thing. Like, what was the feeling with the fans?
The reason why that Batista let him go is because that was his contract year. So essentially, it was like we're gonna ship him away because I guess they were not gonna sign him because he was gonna be very, very expensive. So it was like, let's get something for him, you know. As far as the fan base, it wasn't. We knew that we were gonna miss the offensive numbers, right? That because defensively he was whatever. He was never the greatest. I mean, people were taking off on him all the time.
He would have been perfect in this DH generation.
Yeah, and I know Tommy Lasorda played him at first a couple of times at first base because he wanted to save his knees, but it just never really worked out. So the offensive numbers is what the fan base was really concerned about, because this guy was giving us damn near 40 dingers a year and good average. But I don't know. I remember it was a big deal back when he got shipped out. But yeah, I remember that game in '93 where he had 2 dingers off of you guys, and it was a slaughter. We pretty much just I think it was a double-digit slaughter, and we knocked you guys out of playoff contention, and you guys needed to win that game.
Yep.
And of course we did it again in 2004. But the funny thing about 2004 is that it was either us or you guys, and then we ended up winning that game and we went to the playoffs. Whereas '93, we were out of it. We were just playing spoiler, and we did a good job doing it. So that was our little moral victory right there.
The 1982 story of the Giants was
that one hurts.
An average team that played a little bit above their weight and then spoiled it for the Dodgers. Like, that's the story of that entire season.
Right. Yeah, Joe Morgan, right?
Yep, Joe Morgan.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number one? We already.
So I also have a couple honorable mentions, just a couple. One of them is Rod Beck. I hated that guy because he was lights out. I mean, he passed away unfortunately young too, but
with the mullet.
Yeah, he was like John Tenta, right? He looked like he was 45 when he was 25.
Yep.
But he was one of those like old school, like grimy, like players, you know what I'm saying? But he was one of those guys that when he was a great closer, you know. Actually, there's a couple closers on my honorable mentions list. Another one is Brian Wilson, which we ended up getting later on. You
guys got him, yeah.
But we got him. He wasn't as good as he was with you guys, you know. And that's another one that was like, fuck, here he comes, you know. And then Jeff Kent was my other one honorable mention. I remember a promo that Jeff Kent did rubbed me the wrong way. He said that he hates baseball and he never watches baseball. He's like, why am I going to watch? That's my job. Why would I watch games? And I was like, as a kid, that was weird to me. Like, just that, and it never kind of like, it never got away from me. And then later on, he became a Dodger because he was from here. He grew up here. When he retired as a Dodger, you know, he had a press conference. He started crying and stuff. One of the more awkward MVPs, I think, right? Because he was the MVP in 2000. And what are you know, it was like Dean Malenko winning like number 1 in the PWI 500 in like 97. It was like out of all the Bob
it was Bonds fatigue, right? It was now he had great numbers that year. He could back it up, but it was like fatigue of do we really want to give this to Barry? Like, we kind of know what's going on here. Like, there's some funkiness going on. Do you want to keep rewarding this dude? And they're like, oh, we have this other guy who we can finally give this award to. So I think that's a lot of what it was, but well deserved, because he was awesome that year, and he had the numbers. He had some really good years. I think when he left the Giants, he went to Houston before he came to the Dodgers.
Right.
But yeah, it was like I didn't realize it was like the last 3 or 4 years of his career was with you guys. And by that time, he's like playing first base. He's not even playing second base anymore.
Yeah. He was past his prime, but he was with us because he wanted to be a Dodgers, because he grew up as a fan of the Dodgers, supposedly. But he was also a guy that was very much like media shy. He wouldn't really talk to the media. That's probably why it was an awkward MVP year. It wasn't that he didn't deserve it. It's just he wasn't bombastic. You know, you used to like Barry Bonds and King Griffey Jr. and these guys who are like have so much charisma, you know, and they're larger than life. And then it's like, oh, there's Jeff Kent. Okay. So my number one would have to be Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
You know,
it has to be. Absolutely has to be.
And to this day, I mean, that guy's so full of himself, you know. When he was cutting that promo on his I don't know what was his godfather was Willie Mays his
Mm-hmm.
godfather or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like he every interview I saw of him putting him over when Willie Mays passed away, he would always find a way to put himself over as part of giving a little speech to Willie Mays, and that's just who he is. He's always been full of himself, um, and and I like watching. Sometimes the algorithm would put up these baseball videos, and I don't know if you've seen the one where Greg Maddux is analyzing his and Barry Bonds puts himself over big on that at
Yeah,
bat,
yeah,
man.
yeah. He's got the iPad and he's like talking about
Yeah,
what the pitch is going to be, and he knows what's coming, and you can't get me
yes.
on this, and yeah.
So he's always been like that. And he's also a guy that has like very thin skin too. Whenever they rag on him, he gets very upset. I've seen him in interviews. Um, and so I don't know. He's always rubbed me the wrong way. And also, what I'm about to say, I'm a little conflicted on because, yeah, he's a cheater. We know he's a cheater, but then again, who wasn't cheating during that era, right?
Mhm.
But just the fact that he knew what he was doing when he's breaking these, what bothers me the most is that he created an unbreakable record by cheating. Like right now we have we have Aaron Judge who's consistently hitting 60 dingers a year now,
Mhm.
which is crazy. But also we have Ohtani, right? And Ohtani has 23, and I don't know who leads the league right now, but we can't even get excited about a race because 74 is so far away. Like I was doing the math, like I was thinking like how many home runs does Ohtani have to have during the All-Star break for us to start getting excited about this? And it's like 42 or 43, and I'm like, that'll never happen, you know?
Do you know the story about why he started doing it?
I seen the Balco documentary, so I remember from the perspective of, by the way, that guy's a big carny too. But I've seen the guy that was the
Victor
Balco,
Conte.
yeah, just the way he talks and stuff like that. But uh, they did state something there. But what's your story?
So I I think it's the Jeff Pearlman book. He wrote a book about Barry sometime in like the mid 2000s. I think it's called like Love Me, Hate Me. I think this is where I remember this from. So McGuire and Sosa are this is through the 1998, the home run chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, these guys are getting so much love. They are getting all of the marketing opportunities. They're getting all of the accolades. And me and Ken Griffey Jr. are the better baseball players, but it's almost like they surpassed us. And some of that was also Griffey and Bonds were often, getting injured. And so Barry decided that he wants to do what these guys are doing because he knows he's better than these guys and he's deserving of the praise. And that was literally why, is because he was like, I'm better than these guys. And that people think that they're the best baseball players, but I'm better and I know what they're doing. And thus I'm just going to do it too, because that's how you get the accolades in this game, is to kind of jump on the boat with these guys. And that was the reason. And then he just
Yeah.
became like so much better than everybody else. Then it exposed him as that. Then there's the giant bullseyes when it's McGuire and Sosa, and you're kind of getting close to these records, and then the Paul Bunyan guy, who's McGuire's story was really interesting too, because he had just gotten a divorce with the wife, and he had his kid. He would parade his kid around, his little chubby kid, who's a grown ass man now, but
Yeah.
and then it was really like he had this relationship with his wife's new husband, and so there was like lots of really good things about Mark, but it was also to just kind of disguise the other stuff that he was doing, and it was like unfair to Barry. Like, why is this? Everyone thinks this guy's like the greatest guy or whatever, and I'm a better player. And that's kind of that was the brass tacks for him, was who's the better player, me or Mark, or me or Sammy? It's obviously me. Now I'm just going to show everybody.
Yeah. He had that confidence, right? And that's what I mean when he does interviews. He comes off as a guy that's full of himself still to this day. But you need that to be successful sometimes. But to me, it's like he killed. I mean, he didn't kill baseball. Actually, he helped baseball because the chicks dig the long ball era was a big draw for baseball. It actually brought them back from that 1994 strike.
And you know what? There's talk of labor struggles soon because of the haves and the have-nots. Like, okay, now I'm not even blaming the Dodgers here, but I was reading a story, and one of the guys was saying if the Dodgers win another World Series, that will guarantee that there will be a lockout by the major league owners, because they will the other teams will feel that because of what the Dodgers have been able to do, we cannot do anything because we cannot catch up to them. And they make so much money, and it's all because of that cable deal that they have, where that really helps them. And, they signed the best deal. They signed the smartest deal. But there's going to be issues if they win the thing again. So, like, there are people actively rooting against the Dodgers winning again because they don't want to see the labor issues come out. But who knows? That stuff is, a lot of that stuff is over my head because I don't even really know what they're fighting about anymore. But
yeah. But at the same time, I mean, it's like Mookie Betts once said. He was like, at the end of the day, everybody's going home in a Benz. Like everybody's making money, and you look at these because I did the research on the revenue sharing, and it's all greed because people don't know, but the teams all, they put it all in a pot and everybody gets a little bit of it. Like the A's get some money, the Marlins get some money, but the owners are not investing it back into the team. The Rockies get some money. There's this misconception that every team has to draw from their fan base, and that's not true at all. Major League Baseball supports all 30 teams, and some of them more than others, depending on where you're at. And so the A's, the Marlins, the Rockies, the Pirates, these teams do make a lot of money. They make millions, from the Dodgers, but they just don't reinvest it back into the team, and so that's a big problem. And I think that would be my defense. If I was in Dodger management and they're bringing up this whole salary cap thing, I would be like, well, what about these owners? How much are they making just on revenue sharing alone, and they're not reinvesting? Yep. We're reinvesting everything. It is a little bit unfair, but at the same time, if the Dodgers had a record of like 50-10 right now, that would be a better argument. But it's still competitive. There's still injuries. The Giants, the D-backs, the Padres, they're all doing great. And so I think right now baseball is very profitable, and the attendance is up for a lot of these stadiums. It just, to me, the owners are getting greedy, and that's really the problem here.
All right, let's end it. Looking forward to this weekend. Giants come into town. I sense that you're feeling pretty good about your team. I am not. Like, the Giants are winning some of these games like in insane fashion, and to me, that's not a great recipe for continuing, winning games like this. Like, they had won 6 games in a row, all by 1 run, and so, like, a lot of that is smoke and mirrors to me.
You guys are a half game behind us, by the way.
I know, and so I am not confident going into LA that the Giants are the better team. I don't think that at all. I want to see them play competitively. Of course, I would love for the Giants to go in there and win all 3 games. I don't see that happening. But
I don't see that happen either.
It's kind of a litmus test for me. And I've said this a lot this season. It's almost like, okay, how good are we? Let's test ourselves against good teams. Like, they went into Detroit and they lost all the games in Detroit. And I was like, okay, that told me something, because Detroit's actually a pretty good baseball team this year.
They're really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really
and so then the Padres come into town, and they win the first 2 games by in extra innings, both games by 1 run. And I'm like, okay, we're right there. And then the Giants win the next 2 games, so they split the series. So I think they're proving that they can hang with these teams. I'm not sure I truly believe that they're going to win these games unless they get a little bit more offense. And maybe that's Buster Posey's, his main job is, if you believe, then you got to find a bat. So that is my perspective. What is your perspective as we come into the series?
Well, here's what I got to tell you is that if you're confident on the Giants offense, you guys do have a chance because again, our pitching staff is completely shot right now. We're just kind of waiting for the second half at this point. But one thing about the Dodgers is that they are going to give you 6-7 runs per game. I mean, these guys they're on offensive juggernaut, one after another. And it's heartbreaking because we lose a lot of games where we have a lot of like 10-9 losses, or 8-7 losses, or we go into extra innings. Very, very exciting games, but it's like this offense is putting all these runs, but this pitching staff is just letting it all go. So if you guys could come up with some runs, there's a good chance you guys might get a W or a couple W's in this game. Not a sweep. I just think we're too good of a team for a sweep. On my end, I'm hoping to take the series. If we could take the series, then I'm happy. 2 out of 3, we're fine.
Yeah.
I don't think we could sweep you guys right now. The way you guys have been playing, you guys are coming off momentum with the Rockies. That in baseball, especially, that counts for a lot. And so I'm concerned about our pitching. Kershaw goes on the mound. I'm really going to be concerned. So I think if you guys could put up some runs, then you guys have a chance.
All right, man. I did not think we were going to talk this long. I thought there was a chance that we would get to 90, but we went 2 hours. That
I don't feel like it either.
No. And so this is, like I said, this is not something that we're going to do often. This is all going to be based off of, kind of when we feel it. We both have busy schedules, but whenever Draven wants to come do this again, I will find time on my own. But this was fun because I think if you were a Dodgers fan, you could listen to this podcast and learn a lot about the Giants. And if you're a Giants fan, I think you learned a lot about the Dodgers and their team. And that's what I was kind of going for. And where I got the idea? It's something that I've been thinking about for a while, but where I truly was like, oh, I need to do this is Tim Kawakami and your guy Dylan Hernandez do a podcast
I love those guys.
Called North and South. And so Dylan talks about all the LA teams and Tim talks about the Bay Area teams. And then they kind of do some crossover stuff. So I thought, you know what? They're doing it so well. I would love to try it as well. And you're the perfect guy for me to do this. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, they have a podcast. All the LA Times guys have a podcast where Dylan Hernandez and Bill Plaschke, and they have the Dodgers beat writer as well, who I forget his name. He's a pretty good reporter. And they sit there, man, and they analyze this team and they clown on Bill Plaschke because he's old as dirt.
He's been there forever.
Yeah, so it's all good. So yeah, no, like I said, I learned a lot too. And one thing I will say before we get out of here, I now empathize with the Yankees fandom of the mid '90s when everybody would say they were buying the championships.
The evil empire, man.
I want you Giants fans to listen to this because I know there's a lot of Giants fans listening. We still sweated, man. We're not a perfect team whatsoever. Like this idea, because I know there's this narrative outside of LA that we have this amazing team and we're gonna win 10 championships in a row. It's not perfect, and we have injuries and it's still a struggle every single day. So as a baseball fan, I'm with all of you and all of your teams because it's a struggle for all of us to get the wins.
Yeah, he says that. But if the Dodgers take 2 out of 3 from the Giants, he's blowing up my phone just talking about how good the Dodgers are and how bad the Giants are. All right. This was awesome. I would love to do it again sometime in the future. Had so much fun, and it's very rare that you can kind of dig deep with somebody. And it's not like you and I are like super old guys. Like imagine people who were watching Giants and Dodgers in the 60s. I'm sure they have like so many crazy memories, but we go back far enough to where this stuff still matters to us. So, all right, that is it from here. Thanks for Draven. I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.